Welcome back to Lawrence County High School for Economics, Unit 2. We're talking about economic theory. Yesterday we looked at Adam Smith, and we are going to say that he is the father of not only economics, but maybe the father of capitalism, where it's a system where there should be just a pure free market, and the government shouldn't have all these rules and regulations, just let people and firms trade back and forth with each other. And since we all want to do what's best for us, we'll make lots of goods and services which people want to consume and buy, which is good for the economy. Now remember, that's the invisible hand. Today we're going to look at pretty much the opposite end of that spectrum. We're going to look at, first off, Peter Griffith. But we're really going to look at something called, communism. And we'll start off with a discussion on Karl Marx, and that's Karl with a K. Born in 1818, died in 1883. So Marx is going to come around into play after Smith has come and gone. Karl Marx is a German philosopher and also known as the father of communism. So if you're a philosopher, you know that you just sit around and think about why people do the things they do, and hopefully you buy a book and people buy it. You know what happens to people who go to college now and they major in philosophy? They become managers at Pizza Hut. So Karl Marx will write something called the Communist Manifesto in 1848 with his partner, a guy named Friedrich Engels. The Communist Manifesto, he will basically say, the history of all existing society is a history of class struggle. Marx sees the world as pretty much the haves and the have-nots. You have the upper class and you have the lower class. And basically our whole society or our whole world is just this clash between these people up here and the people down here. In capitalism, the struggle is between two different groups which are called the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. And once again, you may say that's not bourgeoisie, it's bourgeoisie, but trust me, it's bourgeoisie. So let's look at these two groups of people. The proletariat. The proletariat are the working class that labor for a wage. These are the people who get up out of bed every morning, they get dressed, and they go down to work, and they work hard all day, and they get paid some money for doing it, and they come back home, they wake up the next day, and they do the same thing all over again. I would be a member of the proletariat, as probably most of your parents are. Maybe you are. So the proletariat are simply the workers. We go out, we work, we earn money. The other side of this equation, which Marx says is the bourgeoisie, this is the ruling class that owns the means of production. He will also call these people the capitalists. Think about what it said here. They own the means of production. So they own the natural resources. They may own or purchase the labor. They may own all the tools and machinery. So these are the people who own everything. These are the people who go to work for them just to earn a little bit of money. So this struggle is between the workers and the industrialists, the workers and the capitalists, the workers and the owners of the factories. So there's your struggle, according to Marx. Marx will also write another book called Das Kapital, written in 1867, and he's going to throw out a few new ideas in Das Kapital. He's going to say, value is created by the labor of workers. That things have value after workers work and create that value. And the problem, according to Marx, is the capitalists exploit the workers. Exploit means they take advantage of them by not sharing the profits created with their labor. Think about that for a second. And he's going to call that something called surplus value, which is simply this. And there's a long definition. It's profit collected by the capitalist after selling goods manufactured by the workers who were paid a small wage. So let's think about that whole thing for a second. Let's say that I have a large expanse of oak trees. Like I have hundreds of acres of oak trees. What are they worth? And you can say, well, they're going to be worth a whole lot. Really? So I walk out into this forest of oak trees and I sit there and I go, okay, where's the value? Maybe I'll pull up a lawn chair and I just sit there with my hand open and say, where's the money? I'm here, these are my trees, they're supposed to be valuable, I want the money for them. Well, what has to happen is someone has to come in with chainsaws and cut all those trees. Then they have to put them on trucks and haul them to the sawmill where they'll be cut into timber, and then they'll be sold to factories that will produce things. Now, after that happens, I get some money. But let's think about Marx's idea. Nothing really has any value until some work happens. And then once someone has done some work and they've taken that tree and turned it into a finished product, now it has value. Who did the work here? I sat in my chair in the forest and didn't do anything. Loggers came in with chainsaws and trucks. They did all the work. Who's going to get the money? Well, the loggers are going to get paid some, but I'm probably going to get the most of the money because I happen to own the logs. So let's think about that. The surplus value was created by the loggers. They actually went in and did all the real hard physical work to create the value, but all they got paid was a small wage, while the owner made a whole lot more money. And that's the real problem according to Marx. That's unfair. The workers are being exploited. So the answer to the exploitation of workers by the capitalists is to transition our society into communism. And that's where we get our hammer and sickle, which you may recognize as a symbol of Soviet Russia. What does the hammer and sickle mean? These are tools used by workers, hammers and sickles. The red is to symbolize the blood of the workers. So communism is a social system in which all economic and social activity is controlled by the state, which basically means the government. So when Marx is dreaming up this idea of capitalism, of communism, it isn't so there can be communist control of everything and he can control everyone's lives and make you do whatever it is the government wants you to do. The basis for it is the capitalists are taking advantage of the poor workers down here at the bottom, and that's not fair. So we need to let the government just control all the means of production and make everything equal for everyone so you won't have rich people and poor people. Let's look a little further at this. Oh, by the way, can you recognize anything in this party? Of course, you got Karl Marx, Chairman Mao from China, Joseph Stalin from Russia, Fidel Castro from Cuba, and of course Vladimir Lenin from Russia. So they're all having a communist party. That's economic nerd humor. In Marxist communism, he wants to abolish private ownership of property. He does not think that I need to own 400 acres of oak trees. Why? Why do I need that? If I'm just going to live in a house, I just need a house and a little yard, and that's really it. I don't need to own all these oak trees. So let's get rid of people owning massive amounts of property. He likes the idea of collective ownership of the means of production. Collective means everyone owns it together, which basically means the government or the state controls it. So the government will control the means of production, which means they'll own all the natural resources, they will hire labor as they see necessary, and they will own all the factories. There will be an equal obligation of everyone to work. So in Marx's communist system, everyone's important, and everyone needs to get up and go to work every day. Now, of course, if you have people who are disabled, we understand they can't go to work, but pretty much everyone else needs to be working. And every job is equally important. Everyone from the coal miner to the person picking up garbage to the person doing brain surgery. In order for society to work, everyone's job is equally important. He wants state control of all the means of communication and transportation. Think about that for a second. Now, I guess that during this time, the means of communication would have simply been newspapers, possibly, but he wants the government to control all communications, and he wants the government to control all means of transportation. He liked the idea of gradually joining agriculture and industry to abolish the distinction between town and country. So this idea that you have cities and that you have farms way out in the middle of nowhere. He wants to get rid of that. Let's just sort of merge it all together, where it's just one big running thing where you got a factory, you got some farms going on, it's like a city and town mixed together, and it's just all the same. We don't need to have towns and then the country. Let's make it all one thing. And in a weird twist, he thought there should be free public education for everyone and put an end to child labor. Instead of making kids go to work in a factory when they were 7 years old, let's give them an education. We don't need to have child labor. And the last thing I'll put up here is the end result should be a utopian society with no classes and no government. So utopia, of course, is this unrealistic vision of a perfect society. And at the end of it, in Marx's eyes, there wouldn't even be government. That once you got this system set up and everyone saw how perfect it was, the government could just sort of fade out. And once you got the ball rolling, it would just continue to roll. There would be no rich people, there would be no poor people, there wouldn't be owners and workers. Everyone would be the same. That's really what Marx's idea for communism was. Now, we've seen it tried several times in the real world. It's never been successful because it's run by humans, and humans aren't perfect. And sometimes humans are greedy, and humans don't always do the right thing. So this system has never worked, and in my opinion, will never work. But that's what the idea behind communism was. So just to review, you have Adam Smith, who thinks the government should stay out of everything and let people make decisions based on what is good for them. You have Karl Marx, who says, let the government run everything because people are not going to do the right thing, and the government will set it up to where everyone does okay. So those two, who's right or who's wrong? Well, in the real world, we've seen that capitalism seems to work a whole lot better than communism. So we'll be back tomorrow to look at even another economic philosopher.